I'm Lauren Petrich, and this is a video on the prehistory of the chemical elements. I will be discussing the most prominent pre-modern traditions, the Western and Chinese ones. Each one has its own set of elements and interrelations between the elements and relations with other things. Some 2350 years ago, Aristoteles of Stagira, or usually called Aristotle, stated a conception of the elements that became the traditional Western elements for over 2,000 years. He drew on his predecessors Thales with water, Anaximenes with air, Empedocles with the four terrestrial elements. He added ether, the celestial element. Some medieval alchemists went further, adding sulfur and mercury and even salt. The four terrestrial elements are related by certain attributes: hot versus cold and wet versus dry. Fire is hot and dry, air is hot and wet, water is cold and wet, and earth is cold and dry. Ether, the celestial element, is in a class by itself. In Aristotle's physics, everything has a natural sort of motion and a natural place. Earth falls strongly downward, water falls weakly downward, air goes weakly upward, and fire goes strongly upward. This makes layers of earth, water, air, and fire. But in the heavens, ether moves in circular fashion and never falls to the earth. The four traditional elements correspond to a variety of things like seasons and life stages. They also correspond to the traditional four body fluids and also to the traditional four personality types or temperaments. Phlegm equals spit and mucus and the like. Choleric is angry and irritable. Sanguine is outgoing and cheerful. Phlegmatic is withdrawn and content. Melancholic is depressed and sad. In the 1950s, psychologist Hans Eysenck noted correspondence between the traditional element attributes and two modern dimensions of personality, extroversion and neuroticism. Angry is extroverted and neurotic, outgoing is extroverted and stable, withdrawn is introverted and stable, and depressed is introverted and neurotic. As one can see, heat corresponds to extroversion and wetness to neuroticism. Could this explain the otherwise unmotivated looking correspondences? Though the traditional elements do not map onto any modern elements, they nevertheless map onto phases of matter. The traditional elements also correspond to the major constituents of the universe, though it is a more whimsical correspondence. Baryonic matter is the most solid, therefore it is earth. Dark matter flows to everything and it's dense, therefore it's water. Neutrinos are less dense and they flow through everything, therefore it's air. Photons are reactive and less dense, therefore they're fire. Dark energy is the most mysterious of all, therefore it's ether. Though the celestial realm is made of ether, the four terrestrial elements nevertheless reach into it. They make three cycles of fire, earth, air, and water. The seven metals were recognized substances in their own right, even though they were compounds of the elements. They corresponded to such sevens as the seven traditional planets and the seven openings in our heads. In 1610, Galileo discovered Jupiter's four largest moons with his telescope. Francesco Cici's response is arguably astrology's greatest scientific triumph. As all that was going on in the Western world, the Chinese were developing their own tradition of elements, complete with their own set of relationships. The Chinese elements are related by generating each other and also by overcoming each other. As you can see, generating and overcoming make a very symmetric sort of pattern. The elements form complete cycles even though they look contrived. I don't know of any inverse generating cycle, but there is an inverse overcoming cycle called insulting. Metal pokes fire, wood dulls metal, earth buries wood, water erodes and covers earth, and fire boils water. Planets are related to the elements. Their Chinese names are wood star, fire star, earth star, metal star, and water star. Also related are colors, cardinal directions, fingers. Yes, each finger has its own element. Other body parts, body fluids, mental states, and other things. The Chinese zodiac is best known for corresponding to the years. The year of the rat, the ox, the tiger, the rabbit, the dragon, the snake, the horse, the goat, the monkey, the chicken, the dog, and the pig. The elements also have a cycle, with each element having a yang year followed by a yin year. The zodiac cycle and the element cycle combine to make a 60-year cycle. It has 5 zodiac cycles and 6 element cycles. Wood yang rat, wood yin ox, I won't read them all, water yin pig. The element cycle gives all 5 elements to each sign and makes them alternately yang and yin. Who is right? Both sides agree on there being 5 elements and both sides agree on 3 of them, but it ends there. The Western elements form a square with an additional element, while the Chinese elements form a pentagon. The elements also differ in their relationships to other things, like to the zodiac, and the zodiacs themselves also differ.